Question time will be nil. Questions on notice, please. Oh, there is nil. Questions without notice. Any questions without notice? No. Don't quite understand that one, but just around Kellyanne Saffin will be joining us at 9:15, as we said before the meeting. So that'll be fine. Motions on notice, there is nil. Motions without notice, please. Nothing? Right. Petitions, there is nil. Correspondence, you've all had a chance to read the correspondence. Now, Kellyanne is not there yet, so we'll move to council committees. There is two recommendations there from the audit committee. Now, the audit committee met Thursday the 21st. A very good meeting, I think, and there was a lot of discussion on the issues that were brought from council to the audit committee. And I think staff put up a presentation from those questions. I think it was reasonably well received. So is there any other of the audit committee members want to add anything to that?
Yeah, look, yeah, I will, yeah. But it's the meeting on the 11th where a lot of those, the three things that the council referred to the audit committee, and I think councillors should be aware that you know, during that process and the discussion and the reports and everything else, that it was abundantly aware that the compliance with council's procurement policy and budget, well, I forgot the technical name for it, but the budget framework policy, that hadn't been complied with, and obviously with the road resheeting, there was an overspend of some nearly $400,000 that you know, staff, there was no budget allocation from which is a, you know, it's something council can't just ignore. So we have to, we've got these recommendations there in the audit committee meeting that we continue to monitor the procurement policy and the budget framework policy. But I don't know what Dennis thinks, but you know, generally we need to, I'm not sure what we should do, but I think doing nothing's not really a sensible thing to do either.
Yeah, it's correct, Councillor Brown. But I think later on in the meeting with the policies, with the changes that have been put into those policies, I think that's a step forward to what we want to achieve. The audit committee had pretty robust discussion over this, and as Councillor Brown said, it'd be a lot better if it didn't happen. And we would not like to see that sort of level of overspend happen again. With the road resheeting one, like the other one, Cross Street and Canane Street, there was a lot involved in that that probably we didn't see, like particularly Canane Street, like the floor level of those houses probably should have been a bit higher, would have saved a lot of work on that road. So there's a few issues there. In Cross Street, well, I spoke to Councillor Pomerenke, like, should we be spending more on our design work and things like that? So there's a whole range of issues there that sort of got us to where we were. And I think after the discussion with the audit committee, Peter and Colin were both at that meeting, and I think they probably got the message that council weren't all that happy with where we went, and I think everything will be done to try and avoid that again.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment, please?
Yes.
I'll just put myself back on. Hang on.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, from that meeting, we've taken that on board. Management's taken that and said, well, we need to make sure that there is compliance. Well, I've started to implement a range of different procedures now that will make ourselves more compliant with the budget framework policy and procurement policy. We have already instituted some planning of how we're going to go about that, and like enrolling in some modules, procurement module courses, and we're also changing some procedures at which staff will be having a meeting with me in the next fortnight to look at how we need to comply. I think there's just a the word I want to use is that we've just gone away from being compliant. We need to make sure we do comply, and it's not intentional. I don't think it's just that we're not just using the right processes. So we'll make sure that complies. And part of the, as Dennis referred to, with the procurement policy, I've put in a couple of lines in there if that policy gets changed, where we do some random audits of the of the procurement policies to make sure we are compliant at times. So we've taken that on board. Yes, we acknowledge that there has been a problem, and we will go to make sure it gets fixed. Thank you.
Colin, any other comments? Councillor Pollard, Councillor Brown? No, I think
not at this stage.
I
I think
we'll have a look at the policies and just see whether that's to our satisfaction or whether we want to do something different. So we didn't move those audit committee minute recommendations, did we, Paula? Don't think. Would someone prepared to move those two recommendations? Councillor Moore, second. Councillor Higgins, any further questions? If not, all those in favour? Against? That is carried. Now, Kathy, are you there or not?
turn it the other way, Kellyanne.
Yeah, you're on sideways, Kellyanne. Now you're looking better. Kathy, are you there or not?
You're muted, Kathy, if you are.
No.
Anna was doing some work.
I have spoken to Anna, and she's doing some work with Kathy, or she's going to try and ring her. So we're on it.
Thank you. All right, Kellyanne, we can move into your presentation now. We've got about 15 minutes. So I've forwarded that email that you sent on Friday, late Friday, I think it was, about the RDA helping Northern Area, or what Northern Areas Council want RDA to do. So councillors have had a chance to have a look at that. So if you continue on your presentation, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I'm going to start today, and you will notice that I am actually in the Southern Flinders, so you have to excuse me. But one of the consequences of the successful Building Better Regions Fund application, which you may or may not have seen, is that the money is confirmed now for the Remarkable Southern Flinders project, which I previously have talked to. So I think it's important to just start with that today, so that everybody understands the parameters of that. And obviously, when we're either not so Zoom restricted, or alternatively, I'll send you the actual presentation of what's in and what's out. So as per my previous discussion with Council, we were pushing the strategic view that the Southern Flinders had an opportunity to bring together multiple projects, most importantly from the Northern Areas perspective, the Beetaloo Reservoir, the opening up and potentially opening up the fire tracks behind. And so we put together a steering group on which Colin sits once a month.
Thank you.
Just hang on a minute, Kellyanne. Can you please mute your microphones if you are not talking, please? Sorry, Kellyanne.
That's all right. Sorry. So consequently, we've been meeting monthly or thereabouts with the 3 CEOs of Northern Areas, Mount Remarkable, and also Port Pirie Regional Council, and Edison, Dew, and the new Nukunoo TWT. We wrote an application in December to include funds and had an in-principle agreement from the state government to put $5 million in. to bringing together the new national park and, as I mentioned just before, the opening up of Beetaloo Reservoir beyond what they've done now. Friday before last, the Commonwealth Government confirmed that they will also be putting $5 million into that project. Which is why I'm actually out with representatives from the Department of Environment and Water, because there is a real push from both the Commonwealth and the state government that this project starts very quickly as a key recovery project. So the Parks 2025 announcement confirmed the funding towards Beetaloo. The quantum of that is about $400,000, still being defined. One of the things that we're doing tomorrow is at Beetaloo. Where that's also underway is you had a resolution to assist with the Building Better Regions Fund application, and we're moving very quickly, and a tender is out now, which closes today, and the first shortlisting will be done this week for looking at how we might brand the offerings, given that the aspiration was that this new cluster be something which is as preeminent to us as, probably over-pitching this, but why not, as preeminent as a new alternative Grampians with proximity. So that's underway, as is a tender that's out through RDA for the mountain bike trails that will extend right down one side of the northern side of the Southern Flinders. I'm really excited because I believe that we'll see that we and the state and Commonwealth government see this as a recovery project now. Flip side of that is that there is a real desire to do stimulus work in region quickly and to use displaced workers to do that. We have a register in place at the moment where we've been registering people for jobs under something we call Job Match, and we're going to use that for local contractors in that space. We have another meeting with the 3 CEOs to go through the next part on the Monday the 29th of June, and we will continue to do that monthly. What I'd like to do is I signal to you that it would be clear by the 29th of June exactly who will be the landholder in the Beetaloo catchment. And we know from the engagement that's been done that we need to work through a couple of issues, which is how fire management and other things would be put in place, depending upon whether SA Water or Dew is the holder of that land. And the second tier is obviously with the success of the application for Bundalia Forest, is how that might sit in the tourism offerings as well. So very excited. It's a great project to have got up, and we're delighted to have been able to really drive that project. But where the fact that the Commonwealth Government is keen to get the money out as a recovery means that we're going to be very quickly moving towards that space in that area. I might pause there to take any questions on that because I appreciate that we have lived and breathed this area, and we've been briefing quite heavily into the CEO, but I'm just conscious that councillors might want to ask questions on that before I go any further.
Thanks, Kellyanne. So is there any questions from elected members, please? Sue?
In your short presentation, Kellyanne, you said the north side of the ranges. There isn't really a north side. Did you mean east or west? Your side or our side?
Yeah, sorry. So your side, there'll be a focus on trails and particularly mountain biking on the northeastern side of the ranges. It will culminate in the walking tracks meeting from that on the Puri side down around Beetaloo. And then the part that is still to be established is what happens with the Mawson and other Hyson Trail, and how that might be either rerouted to be in better country or otherwise. That's a second tier of the project, Sue, also Councillor Scarman, is what that looks like, because it's not within all of the care and control. It's got to go through the consultation with those friends of Hyson. But what I was referring to as the tender in terms of the bike trails is focused on the eastern side. So the walking trails are focused on the Piri side, and the bike trails are focused on the eastern side, with that accumulating on both intended to be in the Beetaloo catchment.
Councillor Brown?
Kellyanne, just a question. Like, I mean, obviously the construction of this and the infrastructure and everything else that's going to be put in place, and it will it be then the responsibility of the local councils for the maintenance, or will it have a maintenance program as well?
No, so I think this is a good outcome, but I'll take your advice on this. The maintenance will be maintained by state government ongoing. And that's what we've clearly indicated in the application. Because it will be on state government land. So it doesn't come with any obligations towards local government on an ongoing basis, or shouldn't have any impact upon your long-term financial plan. The actual monies from the Commonwealth are auspiced by the Foundation for National Parks and Wildlife as a not-for-profit who could do the application for us. And that turned out to be a really good move, but it might have been better to go through council. You never know in a funding round like this. But their role is clearly to auspice the money and to drive the PR in that space. They're a national foundation. They're only auspicing the money. They're going to drive some of the PR because this will be their 50th anniversary year and their 50th national park that they've been involved in. So we saw some really good opportunities to heighten the presence of this project, at least nationally at first instance. But all of the ongoing maintenance will be with state government.
Just on that, Kellyanne, like Bundalia, they're supposedly going to privatise it, whether it ever happens or not with this native title and stuff like that, and then the area that's been given to the community group. So will state government still maintain that, or will that be up to the community group that have taken over Bundalia?
So as I understand, they have contracted at the forest ongoing maintenance and proportions of that to the community group at Bundalia. And that was done from the state government money coming across as part of a previous round under the forestry. But you do allude, so you're right to allude to the fact that they were also successful with the Building Better Regions funding application, which should bring their function centre to closure as well. Now, in relation to the Bundalia Reservoir, that remains with SA Water. And to my knowledge at this point in time, there are no discussions about that part moving away from SA Water and or the maintenance responsibility around the reservoir changing.
Thanks, Kellyanne. If there's no more questions regarding Southern Flinders, we'll move quickly on to the what Northern Areas Council expect of RDA going forward. I really think it's probably, to me, the small business side of it is probably the ones that are hurting the most as far as the farming and agriculture. If it keeps raining, well, prices have been pretty good. Maybe there's not so many issues there, but I think our small businesses, to me, are going to be the ones that probably need the assistance. But I'll open it up to anyone who would like to make further comment. Or Kellyanne, if you want to make comment first, please.
So thank you, Mayor Clark. I'll just give some context in that. So we're building on the recovery plan. We have been asked by our Commonwealth funding partners as well to provide priority projects, to which we've included those projects that had been put through to Minister McCormick as part of the potential local government roads extension program. We really want in the recovery plan to be a bit more focused on the clear areas. I also sent through some economic modelling that we've had commissioned for each of our council areas. And to just give some context there, the whole of our Yorka Mid-North region is running at about, and it differs, and I've actually got some new that slightly changes it, but I won't confuse this, sits at about 9.6 predicted drop in GDP growth in this quarter. That's about 3% less than South Australia overall. And again, you are performing modelling at performing better in that space. But in any normal time, that drop in gross domestic product would be a huge concern. So we'd be realistic that yes, it doesn't look as bad for northern areas as it does for other parts of South Australia, but that's still an a significant drop, and it is clearly with those businesses that have either been forced to close or rely on movement for either business or otherwise, and small businesses that are hurting more than others. So just put that context out there, and then take some questions in that space.
Thanks, Kellyanne. Questions, please, Councillor Brown.
And probably not really a question, but I've just been talking to a few people more recently, and I suppose agriculture or the wool industry is, we're in parts of our council where wool's probably a bigger part of production. That's certainly flowing through into wool markets as far as pricing goes, with what's happened in Italy reverberating through China and into the market here in Australia. So, and how long that before that recovers, who really knows? So, you know, in some parts of our council, and certainly councils moving further north where wool becomes a significant part of their income, it's going to affect us for a while yet.
Through you, Mayor Clark, I'm pretty sure that you'd all be aware of the predictions, and I had a briefing from the Department of Agriculture around the stockpile, which is broadly publicised, the 200,000 bales of wool. So at this point in time, speaking to the dealers that we've spoken to, which is not everybody in your region, but the dealers we have spoken to, they're seeing that the instant depreciation has meant that their flow from farmers who did have that cash flow is good. They're all predicting that the problems will really start for them in 12 months' time, when the true impact of either the tariffs in China and or the drop in tariff from India, which has occurred, plus the wool stockpiling comes to fruition. And some parts of your northern area are still reporting, as I understand it through this farming systems, are still reporting that they feel that they might be in drought at this point in time as well, which we have not ignored in our analysis so far. Does that help, Councillor?
Yeah, no, look, that's fair enough. Yeah, I just wanted to know how aware you were of that, and obviously you've got a handle on it, so that's fine.
All right, any further questions to Kellyanne? I think we'll discuss it later on, Kellyanne, what we think, you know, if the council's a little bit of time to think about it in general business or wherever, that we'll get back to you with some requests or what we think RDA should be doing to help northern areas.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I'm not sure whether Councillor Pollard had a question. I'm not very good at the Zoom, so what can I just say though, in return to the recovery plan, life is moving so quickly for us all that this is the first reiteration. We intend to update this quarterly, so there'll be further opportunity, particularly around priority projects in the next quarter, if something forms out of that which you can see, to bring forward. And I think that we'll just have to have more constant, smaller, more light touch constant conversations, because things are moving so quickly in this space. I just wanted to mention Southern Flinders tourism as well. So we've done a couple of things to really move very fast in that, and we've changed the model since I last spoke to you, so that our officer does both Clare Valley and Southern Flinders quite deliberately in that space. And so we've set up some new things on the website around what's open and otherwise. And over the next 3 months, I know with SATC, we're trying to figure out how we get a little bit more traction in this. We're going to use the Remarkable Southern Flinders project, which is its code name, not what it will be called, by the way, as a way in which to try and engage in the future. And I think that will be a focus. I think that is going to be a focus of our activities anyway, but I need to let you know that that's something that's clearly happening for us, and we need to keep focused on as RDA as well.
All right. Thank you. Did you have a question, Leon, or not, or were you just not fine? All right. If there is no further questions to Kellyanne, thank you very much, Kellyanne, and we'll Colin will probably get back to someone after the meeting with a bit more information for you.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, and sorry I'm doing this from the car. My apologies.
That's all right. As long as you got the heater on, that'll be good.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Kellyanne. All right. moving on. So Kathy, welcome.
Thank you. Technology doesn't like me this week.
Right. So would someone like to move that we receive the operational services report, please? Councillor Webb, Councillor Pomeranke, all those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thanks, Gabby.
Sorry, excuse me, Mayor Clark. We only adopted, in my notes, one of the audit committee minutes. We didn't adopt both minutes.
Okay, thanks, Paula. So we adopted the first one. We'll go back to the second one. Someone like to move it? Councillor Scarman, Councillor Robertson. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thank you, Paula. Now, Gabby, we'll try again.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. The first item is for a road closure and sale of a road to Mr. Kevin Clements. It's a portion of Wellborn Road at Narrady, which adjoins two of his allotments. There's a recommendation there for council to proceed with the road closure and the sale.
Right, move Councillor Scarman, second Councillor Pollard. Now, is there any questions on this, please?
Only that, can we move the whole four as one lot?
I would have thought so, Councillor Brown. No real reason to do them individually. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thanks, Gabby.
The next item is information regarding the commencement of the e-planning and the planning and design code. The Minister has announced that the planning code will commence on 31st of July. This has been delayed for some time now, but they've set that date and that's when the e-planning will go live. They've also advised us of the changes that they made from the submission that we submitted. So I guess the most important changes that we wanted have been addressed. Some haven't, but I guess they're not as important, and we may have expected that that wouldn't be the case. But the most important ones have been addressed, which is good. Are there any questions on this one?
Questions, please. Councillor Pollard.
So the changes to the rural fringe didn't happen as far as I could see, but there's some qualification on there. Does that effectively give us what we wanted?
Yes, it does. So we had asked that they had rezoned the township fringe to rural zone. We'd asked that they change that, but they haven't done that, except what they have done, they've taken the township fringe area and allowed land division. They don't have a minimum for a land division, and they don't have a minimum allotment size to build a dwelling. So ultimately, it has the same effect what we were actually asking for, and they just did it in a different way.
Getting a fair bit of feedback there, Councillor Brown.
Sorry.
Denise, question, please.
Oh, this is just me. When I'm reading it, I'm going, I can't remember what TNV stands for. Can somebody please enlighten me? So on page 17, point 2, there are inconsistencies in the TNV data.
So TNV stands for technical numerical value. And so in the technical numerical values, they'll put perhaps allotment sizes, shed sizes, land division, minimum sizes, that sort of thing, they go in the TNVs.
Thanks, Gabby. I thought I could read through it that it was relating to sizes, and I'm going, but what's TNV stand for? And so I just got hung up on it. Thank you.
Sure. That's fine.
I think we need an updated list of acronyms, but it'll probably be bigger than our agenda, I think. So a bit disappointing. All right, any further questions on that one from Gabby? To Gabby, sorry. No. Planning progress report. Any questions on that? No. All right. If there's no further questions on Gabby's report, thank you, Gabby.
Thank you.
And we'll move along to Alan Thompson, Regulatory Services report, please.
Thank you. No items for council decision, but just a couple of comments on the report. I've completed the application for accreditation with DIPTI, but that'll be 6 to 8 weeks before that's processed. The community regional health plan, which we're in conjunction with Clare and Goyder, that's been on hold during the COVID restrictions, but there'll be more regular meetings now, so we'll be able to get together with the 2 other councils and then make further reports to council. So that will now start this week. We've forwarded all the species for the work at the Spalding complex to look at preventing that slab edge dampness to 3 builders. We've had contact from 1 builder who's definitely interested, so we'll follow that up and hopefully get that report in for council consideration. And I think that's all that I have. Thanks, Dennis.
Any questions to Alan? Councillor Brown?
Not really a question, but the motion I moved at the last meeting on the Washpool Hall, I did have a talk to Alan, and probably 1 council meeting, like 4 weeks, was an unrealistic time frame for that to be done, because it's a significant structural assessment of the hall that needs to be done properly. So I just, make the point that I've had a few phone calls from people concerned and all the rest of it. So I think, we need to be reasonable, and I probably put too short a time frame on it. So I think that would be fair enough to give that a fair bit more time.
Thanks for that, Councillor Brown. Councillor Webb?
The BioSelect bit that I read through, how is that likely to impact us? I know we're only going to make a comment on it, but does it have any effect for our area?
No, not at all. But every local authority received that letter, and it was just there will be an opportunity to comment in probably a couple of months' time, and the information. Well, we've had a discussion with that office, and they just say few councils bother, but that it's just a standard procedure. But we will get an opportunity to comment. So there'll probably be more information table prior to that anyway for the members to comment on. But
thank you.
No, it won't impact on us at all. I didn't realise this, but apparently this occurs with any new product like this that has to go to the Commonwealth Department for approval prior to trials.
All right, thanks, Alan. Any further questions on Alan's report? If not, would someone like to move that that report be noted, please? Councillor Scarman, Councillor Pomerenke. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Now, I just spoke with Colin yesterday. If there's no further questions to Gabby and Alan, they probably don't need to be sitting in on the rest of the meeting. Anyone got any concerns with that? Or Colin, have you got a comment?
No, I've got no problems with it. If Tomo and Gabby want to go, that's fine.
All right, yeah.
Councillor Brown, did you have a comment?
Oh, only that things that come up through the meeting they might need to be aware of, if they're listening to it anyway in the background, if they want to keep working or something, up to them. But like, there's often things come up that overlap, and it's good that they've got the knowledge of it.
Oh, that's fine. Just ask the question, that's all. If they want to just sit in the background there, if they hear their name or someone wants to ask them a question, well, we can do that. All right, thanks, Councillor Brown.
Thank you.
Right, Infrastructure report. Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First report there is proposed resheeting program for 2021. I've included in there some dialogue on, or just a little bit on the estimates for next year, which are a key part of what came from the audit committee, looking at improvements there. So on page 42, the sheet there shows the actual estimates per kilometre and the gross total with the prelims and contingency added there for the values for the roads. In the map on page 41, I noted yesterday that I'm looking at that one, that there's a section of road on Hacklands Corner Road that's not highlighted on that map that should be. So there's the 2.6 kilometres that's identified on page 40, and there's a yellow highlight on it, is the distance there, and it's from where we finished off sheeting this year to 2,600 metres to the west of that. Otherwise, the report is as it stands. Are there any questions?
Probably,
Councillor Brown.
Probably just one on it was the one that didn't make it, the Hill River Road. Now, we talked about doing something with a rock breaker down on that far end last year, and that still never happened. And the Hill River Road, in the assessment, it was obviously very close to needing doing. So I assume it'd be pretty close to the top of the list for the next year, Peter. Would that be right? And what, I mean, with the reports that came back to you, how much material's left on that road? Because it'd just be an interesting sort of look at.
Yeah, it is an interesting one, and it was on the original list. I drove the roads, finished off a couple of them the weekend before last, but it on my evaluation of, again, I'm conscious that we had it on the program a few years ago, and I think you requested we take it off at that stage. It's got a bit more wear since there, certainly, but there aren't any homes on it. We're conscious.
There aren't any what on it?
Homes that directly access off that road.
The Hill River Road?
Past your property?
No, you're talking about the Hutt River Road now. The Hill, not Hilltop Road.
Oh, sorry. Yes, yeah, Hill River. No, Hill River Road's a 2, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, sorry. Yes. Yeah. No. Hill River Road. Yeah, it was close, but still enough material on that not to be able to at least go another year, and we'd reassess it high on this because again it's a Category 2 road, does carry a fair bit of traffic, and does need to be in pretty good nick. So we'd certainly reevaluate that one as a priority for next year.
Yeah, look, it was an interesting thing, but that road was done out of local material secondary crushed out of Cotterill's Pit. And it was done after the Andrews Road, and it's worn out years before. I'm not dead sure whether there's an assessment being done on the Andrews Road east and west, but the stuff that was done there 7 or 8, well, it must be nearly 7 or 8 years ago. And the Hill River Road was done a year or so after that. The section that was from Andrews down to where it becomes a problem, basically. But it has worn away a lot quicker, and there is patches of clay coming through on it, so it's probably not going to last much longer. The Hutt River Road, well, I would have thought a bit of patching and get that through a few years. There's only a couple of patches really that are in trouble. Half a dozen truckloads would fix that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I would expect that Hill River Road will be on on the top of the list next year, if that's the case.
Are we still going to do that rock breaking? That's probably the bit that most people are interested in down that southern end, because it's a real problem. It's a real problem, and well, certainly summertime it becomes a major problem.
I am interested in doing that trial, yes, to see how that fares and see what sort of a result we get out of it. So yes, the intention is to do it.
Okay.
I just have a question on the recommendation. I have a bit of trouble sort of finding out why there's some extra information subject to amendment to the draft capital program resetting budget. It doesn't fit currently, is that what you're saying, Peter?
No, it does fit currently, but council has not yet adopted the budget. So rather than preempt any determinate decision of council, that's included in there to say if council were to adjust the budget, then we need to come back and adjust the program.
Fair enough.
Yep. Okay.
Any further questions on it, Councillor Brown?
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Pollard. There are no further questions. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. If we, Councillor Pollard.
Just one thing, in the report, there's some preliminaries. Are they included in those figures, or are they come out of some other pot, or what's the story with those?
No, the preliminaries are included. So on page 42, the gross road totals include the preliminaries spread out across all of the roads as a percentage across.
Fantastic. Right, thank you.
All right, thanks for that. I meant to mention before, if we have technical difficulties, we'll probably jump into a 5-minute break to give a chance to sort things out if that does occur. All right, next one, Peter, the infrastructure progress report.
Yes, probably the again range of information included in that report. Are there any queries on any elements within it?
Any questions? Councillor Pollard.
The flood mitigation exercise is out for public consultation at the moment. I haven't spoken to a lot of people, but none of them were aware of what it was, whether it was out for public consultation or that it was out for public consultation. Is that the final hurdle for it going ahead?
So from this consultation, we get feedback, and I have had a few people who have contacted me with queries about aspects of it. Not a huge amount, but there are a few people there who made aware. We've put an article in the Jamestown Journal so that people are aware. We put an article in the Plains Producer, so again, so that people are aware, and through our social media. The process from here is that we're providing a number of sessions late in June, as advertised on the website, to discuss with people directly, with the consultant, any queries, any questions, any concerns, any issues that we may have missed. As a part of the consultation process, we then, and that's just that close to the end of the consultation period. Once the consultation period closes, we draw those comments together and have a look at those to see is there anything material that we've missed, anything that needs to be further considered, or to cause an amendment to the draft plan. If there are, there's amendments done. If there aren't, then the plan comes back to council for consideration for adoption, and goes back to the Stormwater Management Board also for their acceptance.
Right, so there's a process to go through yet before it's signed, sealed and delivered, so to speak. Councillor Webb.
Yes, for Peter, the footpath and curb works in Gladstone. I'm noticing a difference between what was done in 5th Street as to what's going into High and 6th Street. It's a lot spongier underfoot. Even the postie's bike is sinking into it when he stops at the letterboxes. Now, whether it needs drier weather for it to dry out and solidify, but at the moment, it's going to get significant damage. I can feel the sponginess when I walk each week.
I'll take that on notice and have a look into it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Scarman first, please.
On the operational services action list on the bottom of page 2, there's that council write to the relevant minister and local members of parliament in relation to bridge infrastructure. Now, I've spoken to Peter about this one and he actually wasn't in that meeting, so it hasn't been written because he's not overly clear on what should be contained in that letter. So does someone want to do a refresher for him?
Well, yeah, I can. I was the one that moved it, I think, from memory. And what I was talking about, Peter, was that both the Commonwealth and state governments are going to be looking for stimulus spending and programs leading out of things in the next year and a half, 2 years, and that we highlight our position as a council with a significant number of bridges that we don't have the capacity to replace, that are all approaching end of life in the foreseeable future. Most of them were built well before or post, just after the Second World War, except for perhaps a few that have been replaced, but not too many. And so they're sort of 80 years or approaching 80 years old, and in some cases older. And it's just an opportunity to highlight to them that there's a significant issue, and perhaps not the same as every council. Some councils would be much larger than us in other states and have far fewer bridges, which are significant infrastructure.
Certainly. Thank you for that clarification. I can move on with that one. It was early on in the COVID stuff, and I had to go and sit in on a phone call thing, and that came out. I thought, I don't know anything about that, so thank you.
Councillor Robertson first, please.
Yeah, my question to Peter is, with the new seals that are not completed, are we going to try and proceed, or has that been put on the back burner until next financial year?
So thank you, Councillor Robinson. Yeah, look, my discussions with the contractor are to pick that up again once the weather warms up.
Thank you.
Councillor Pollard, then Councillor Brown.
What's the status of the Eyre Street redevelopment?
So with the Eyre Street redevelopment, we've had preliminary design discussions with the JDA as a focus group, and they've asked for some modifications to that, which we're working with the consultants to work into their plan. Once they've done that, we'll reconnect with the JDA and just again confirm whether the direction is one that they would support as a key group within the Jamestown area, and move forward from there. So that's where it's up to at the moment. Back with the consultants to reintroduce some elements that the JDA felt missing.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, look, my question was on the patrol grading, and I can see, the year's total, and why I understand this year had, significant periods of dry weather, but how does that stack up over a period of years? Because I would have thought, even though I haven't been back and looked, but I would have thought that's down a fair way on previous years.
Certainly. We got this month to go, and we'll get a little bit more in this month. But with a total of 686, maybe we might get to 800, which is a little bit over half what we would normally do. I think actually it's a bit over half. You're around 1400, I think 1450 thereabouts is what we normally achieve. Yeah, certainly well down on that. Driven around a fair bit of the district in the last little while doing the looking at the resheeting program for next year, and find that to what we have graded's come up pretty well in most instances. Yeah, there's still roads out there that are pretty ordinary, and a fair bit of backlog of grading to do. We just hope the rain continues and we can pick up the rest of those roads in the next few months.
No, fair enough. And just on the Airstreet one, I assume when you get something that you're prepared to do something with, you're going to a broader public consultation, I would assume.
That's correct. The idea of using the JDA as a focus group is to get to the point where it has significant support within the local community. No good getting the design done on the basic consultation today, going out to the community and the community, and the JDA not supporting it. So it's a matter of getting it to a point where the JDA are satisfied that it meets the criteria they're looking for, and within that is addressing issues that, from the consultant's point of view, might work in a larger city, but don't work in a smaller town. So it's about refining that in the first instance, and then taking it out. Not unlike what we're doing with the stormwater management plan articles in the Jamestown Journal, the Plains Producer, and giving a reasonable period of time for consultation and plenty of advertising that it's out there for consultation. I don't expect we'll get, we're getting some feedback on the stormwater management plan. I expect that we will get quite a lot of feedback on the Airstreet plan, particularly if there's elements that people don't like. I expect we'll get a lot of buy-in on that. So we do want to have something that's pretty close to being acceptable to the broader community before we go out to consultation with that.
Thanks for that, and hopefully this COVID-19 thing might be behind us then, and we might be able to have a decent meeting, for the want of a better word, somewhere in the town hall or something, that everyone's got their opportunity to have input to that. Any further questions to Peter? If not, would someone like to move that report be noted, please? Councillor Webb, Councillor Pomeranke, all those in favour? Against? That is carried.
Thank you.
All right, I think we've covered off most questions to Peter. If not, is there any further questions? Thank you, Peter. Corporate and Community Services, someone like to move to receive that report, please? Councillor Robertson, Councillor Higgins, all those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thanks, David.
Thank you. I've just got an information report this month, but I'll just touch on a few key items in that one. So we've received our advance grant payment from the Grants Commission a bit earlier than usual, and obviously we don't necessarily want to get it, but it's been forced upon us again. The LGFA have come out with a support package on the CAD loans. There's a bit of info there about what that means for us. It will mean at a future meeting, we'll need to just move a motion to allow a variation to our existing CAD facilities to put the common seal on it and have it signed off. Rates wise, we've had at the time of writing report, and I think it's crept up a couple, so it's probably about 17 properties currently been approved on the rate deferral. And the last one I'll mention is just where we're currently at with the draft budget. So currently in consultation phase, which closes end of tomorrow. We've just got the one submission so far on the bike pass. And we probably now need to discuss about when we're going to have the special meeting to adopt the budget.
Yeah, Dennis.
Colin, yes, Colin.
Yep. Just get myself back on here. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had in talking with the Mayor and David, we think we can handle a meeting next Wednesday, the 24th, which is a special budget meeting to consider any submissions and any other changes or additions or deletions members want to make as well. So we're looking at that 24th. We're just looking at what time you would like the special meeting. We've been having special meetings at night time, but there's nothing to say that we can have that at 9 o'clock in the morning as well as the same as this. So up for discussion.
Kathy, you got a comment, please?
Yes, I actually have a GCDTA meeting which had been moved forward already, and I do need to attend that one. So a daytime meeting would be better for me.
Councillor Pollard.
I have to have a doctor's appointment in the afternoon to make sure I'm still all right, and we'll be able to attend that meeting, so I don't care as long as it's in the morning.
Have we got a 9 o'clock on that 24th? All happy with that?
Mr. Mayor, I just need to get my diary to check it because I've got a meeting at Clare sometime that week, and I'm not sure whether that's that Wednesday or Thursday.
Well, I'll let you go and have a quick look at your diary if you want to, Councillor Robertson.
That doctor will have a big job checking to see you're all right, Leon.
Just happened to notice, Councillor Pollard, that your mate Mr. Comrie's done a good job on the LGFA's Finance Committee, giving us that little relief. Mr. Comrie signed the letter.
He's a good man, isn't he?
I'll let you decide that.
He has no idea, unfortunately.
All right,
a good public servant.
Councillor Webb.
Yes, just a quick question for David while we're waiting. With that CAD loan rate relief, in one of the notes, which I can't really find right now, it said you could use the existing facility or have an extra loan. Now, we've got one that has never been used. Why do we hang on to that one, and would we use the facility on that one?
Yeah, basically what we are proposing is to use the existing ones, and we just have to do an alteration document with them to use the existing ones. So we're definitely not proposing a brand new one, but we just take, we'll take 1 million of one of the existing ones, and we'll take 200,000 of another one and put them over to one side for 3 years at the lower rate. Now, obviously, if our need arises that we need more of these in the future, we'll just take out a brand new one then, if that's what's agreed.
Yeah.
Thanks, David. Merv, how'd you go?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, no, my wrap interview meeting is on the 25th at Clare, so I'm right for the 24th.
All right, so it looks like 9 a.m. on the 24th for a budget meeting. Now, Colin, is that still likely to be a Zoom meeting, or are we have any chance of getting to the chamber or not?
Look, Mr. Mayor, just make comment on that. Council is now permitted to have council meetings within its own chamber, but with restrictions. Restrictions are that you can't have more than 10 in the public gallery, which won't affect us, but it's more in line with the staff in the chamber, where we can't have the 5 staff in there at the same time because of the social distancing and at the table I sit in. So we have to rotate those around. So you could have that meeting if we could arrange some staff stuff. The only issue with the staff as well, James and David still don't work from the office. So they would not be allowed to come into the office if they work into the chamber. So I would prefer the budget meeting to be a Zoom meeting, and then the July meeting to be full blown again. We could get past those restrictions. staff will
Yeah.
probably be back in the office.
Yep, no, that's fine.
I think we can do it on Zoom because it's not going to be a big meeting.
No, okay, that seems fine to me. Yeah, 9 o'clock will suit, Mr. Mayor.
Right, thanks for that. Right, David, any further comments or any questions to David? Councillor Pollard?
Yeah, back in the dim dark ages, David, we used to get financial reports every month. No real need to put them in the agendas, but if they could be posted online, the same as the correspondence, etc., that'd be handy.
What are you alluding to, Councillor Pollard?
Well, we used to get financial reports every month. Do you remember?
David, yes.
Yes. Perhaps they could be loaded on the under the reports for council in case we want to refer to something. That's all. There's just nothing to refer to at the moment.
What do you mean? The payments listing?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean, Councillor.
Yeah.
Is it
Right,
in your...
David, you explain it, will you?
I'll explain it. So at the moment we produce, I produce an operating and capital listing for management monthly. That is the same listings that make their way into the quarterly budget reviews. And yes, many years ago, they were just routine put in the agenda each month. I think what Leon's obviously suggesting is that as you receive the creditors each month on the extranet, put those monthly operating and capital listings where it shows all the job and account number progress, can that be included on the extranet as well?
Can I just make a comment, David? That's not a full-blown budget review then or anything each month. It's just our listing.
That's right. It's a listing that we can refer to. We had information like that before. We don't have it now. There's nothing that we can refer to except every quarter.
Yeah, that's the policy of council at the moment. We do budget reviews. It's never been suggested in my time that we have these reports.
No,
So,
but before you were there, they were always there.
are they any value to everyone? Monthly, or is it quarterly the best way to go?
No. We want them monthly, Mr. CEO, so that we can refer to them.
Sorry, I'm only asking the question because I've never heard this before. So all of a sudden, out of the blue, you want some reports. What's the basis of wanting the reports?
And it's just a standard report that you generate now every month and that you set. So all it has to do is be attached to the councillors' reports on the internet. I don't see it's any great shakes.
I'm only asking.
If it's a report that's generated, it's there. If councillors want it, it should be available. It's that simple.
Yeah,
it's a document. Yeah.
I'm only asking the question because I've never heard of it before. And all of a sudden it's come out of the blue. That's fine. If you just tell me exactly what you want, if it's only a standard report that we normally do, that's not a problem.
Fine. That's what it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If I can make a comment here, I think we did get those reports, and at the previous council meetings, councillors were asked did they ever read it, and there was a lot that said no, they didn't even look at it. So that's probably why it was not continued. But if that's the request, well, I'll go with whatever you want. So David,
yeah.
Sorry, go Ben.
Do you need a motion to direct that report be there?
We can just do it. That's fine.
And it will get done.
Yeah, it'll get done. Yeah, we'll just do it. The process when we do the development applications, correspondence, and the payment listing. We attach it to that sort of system. That's what you're after, Councillor.
That's it.
Yep. All right.
Okay. Thanks for that. Any further questions to David? If not, thank you, David.
Thank you.
Move along. Community development, James.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning to you and fellow councillors. So with the report, so I've only got information items for this month. First one is an update on the activity report. Just with a note there that a couple of things have occurred since. So the energy efficiency grants through the Hornsdale Wind Farm have been allocated and notified. So there'll be some very happy people and some other people that'll have to have another go. But it's a world we live in. Just some notes about the Flinders Mobile Library. There's been another minor change to resumption of operations. For the first time in some time, we're allowed to have up to 2 people in the truck now. So whilst some people don't think that's a big thing, for some community members, that's a huge thing. So the staff, and it's been an enormous amount of work for the staff lately, having to, they've still been doing their visits, but they've had to lug boxes in and out and basically, I don't know, it seemed a bit like running the shop on Steptoe and Son, I think, but they're very happy to be back up and running, so that's good news. And just and I'll acknowledge in discussions with Councillor Scarman, where old habits die hard, I've written Laura Folk Fair. The name of the event is now the Laura Fair. The incorporated body's still called the Laura Folk Fair, so that's, I'm going to have to fight very hard to train my subconscious to get that right. Just a note in relation to social media, there's one item there that is noted there was over 2,000 views on one particular post on the council Facebook page. For members' information, and this is probably an indication of how important this is to the community, that was the post to say that we were reopening playgrounds. Whether families had kids that were suffering cabin fever and they badly wanted to get them out of the house, that is by far, we've had very few posts get anywhere near that traction. So I thought that was a very, very, very interesting piece of information. And just a note there with the Disability Inclusion Action Plan, work's being undertaken there. I think Peter had previously briefed council with relation to that. I've now been tasked on trying to coordinate having a third party come in to undertake the plan, which will involve some various aspects. So there's some work being undertaken now about looking at how that can be done. So just for members' information, there'll be some further stuff come back, but that's just preliminary advice with regard to that. Just a note with regard to Star Club, you'll probably see that if you have a good read of the report, a large portion of the Star Club officers' time has been dedicated lately with trying to assist clubs and organisations with a resumption to sport. And to put it plainly, it has been a complete nightmare. There's obviously some framework set by the federal government through Sport Australia, the former Australian Sports Commission, the Office for Rec and Sport in Adelaide, and then back through the peak bodies. And ultimately, like everything always falls at the feet of the volunteers. So that's been an enormous level of work, and I take my hat off to the work that he's put through there. But hopefully, before too long, it'll be lovely to be in the position New Zealand are, where they can all attend sport and socialise and enjoy themselves. Just in relation to that one as well, we're still waiting for an outcome this month of notification of the application for additional sports courts at Spalding, which council had previously been made aware of. Whilst another number of other grants seem to be an enormous number. The federal government have been busy this week announcing lots of things, which was good. A lot of you will be aware, the correspondence provided yesterday with regard to the Drought Communities project being approved, and then some notification about a process for extensions there, which is very, very helpful. Obviously, the Jamestown Flying Group with the upgrade of the airstrip to stop Councillor Robinson getting pelted with stones while he's trying to help fill up a CFS air bomber. And some good news just announced for the Spalding War Memorial Committee that have received some funding for the War Monument upgrade there, which I'm sure they are very, very, very happy with. There's just another grant program at the moment. There's been a few questions asked. It's a different one to normal. It's the Energy Australia Hallett Power Station grants. It's actually not handled by council. We have no role in it. Our only role is to share the information. That's for the gas power station out there at Willow, but that's for Goyder, Northern Areas and Peterborough councils. And there's not a lot of money there, but we've shared that information and had a few questions come in, which has been good. So hopefully people are starting to get back on track, which will be helpful. If there's any questions in relation to that report.
Any questions, please? So what's up with Northern Areas football? Do you heard anything, James?
I've not heard anything. With my volunteers hat on, I've obviously been heavily involved with the cricket side, and I've got a video hookup with Soccer and Cricket Australia on Thursday night. So
I can give an update on footy. Last night they had a meeting and they're going to go ahead on July the 4th.
Northern Areas.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Webb.
James, has anything more happened as far as the hall projectors and the NACYAC funding?
With regard to hall projectors, yes, we've still following up 2 of the halls that have not been quite forthcoming as the other 2. Councillor Brown might fully know, but I think Sporting have got theirs all done and completed now.
Look, I haven't been in the hall, obviously, because it's closed, so I can't tell you whether it's up or not because, yeah, I just haven't been in there.
Certainly Gladstone have indicated their willingness and they have asked whether they can go and have a look at the setup at Spalding, which has just been held up a bit lately with all the other matters going on, which hopefully that'll correct itself before too long. So just waiting to hear from the other 2. I've had a couple of phone calls from Mr. White since he's been back out on his feet after his recent time in hospital, which has been good. And he's back to his colourful self, which is great. So, yeah, a lot of sheepyard words, I think, was what my grandmother used to call them, but we digress.
Right. Any further questions to James, please, on his report? If not, thank you, James. Chief Executive Officer's report. Someone like to move to receive that? Councillor Pomeranke, Councillor Pollard, all those in favour?
Would you excuse me for a moment, please? Just excuse me for a moment.
Yep. Colin.
All right, I'm back up there. Can you see me? Yeah, yep.
Yep.
All right, the first one is just a review of confidential minutes for information. That's standard. There's another part of that in the confidential. Second one is the Legatus business plan, where we have to, as we're part of the Legatus group of 15 councils, we have to approve their draft business plan and budgets. Just any questions on that one?
Councillor Higgins, you're muted, Denise.
Sorry. Colin, when I was reading through it a couple of times, I just wondered, like, this is a business plan and some strategic thinking around Legatus. What is our relationship to that in terms of, do we need to take direction from those plans, or are they sitting there as a recommendation for us to look at, or where does that relationship sit for us?
We're part of like 15 councils.
Yep.
So 15 councils set a plan for their region, right? And that comes from basically Gawler to Flinders Ranges, that area. So those projects and what they're looking at is it's probably it's a plan that's been put together over a period of time of projects and what we need to do in the future based on advocacy and money available, right? So it's not a direction for us. It's a direction that group of councils are looking at in the future.
Okay. Because I mean, the things that particularly took my eye were things like on page 94 in the 3-year plan. Hang on, sorry, the 3-year action plan. So page 94, it talked about reconciliation and community, including youth volunteering. So Legatus is basically saying that there needs to be a reconciliation action plan for Legatus, and would that then be adopted by the Northern Areas Council as our reconciliation action plan?
No, you can do it. Yeah, you can do it 2 different ways. you can adopt that one for the region, or you can do your own. All right, there's no compulsion, but they do one for the region as well.
Okay. Sorry, so is there one available, or is that still coming?
Still coming.
Thank you. Okay, so, and the other question I had around that was the one around the MOUs on page 97. In the work with universities, where does that sit for us as a council in particular?
As a council, we don't engage anyone from the universities. The Legatus group to do project work. So we're part of the project work,
Okay.
but Legacy is engaged through this MOU, and it's been done on several projects already where they do it part of their thesis for PhDs or masters or something like that as well. Some topic that they believe that helps them, but it also helps us with research.
So what would be an example of something like that?
There was a what do you call a hub, which is about food and grain type stuff that came out of this region. So they had where you could have a hub to process that through. You know, it's some of it people say it's pie in the sky, but it's development of those sort of areas that could be sustainable in the future.
Great, thank you.
Denise, it's over the whole council, over the whole Legatus region, and I think Colin, there was some work done on the coastal councils as well. I think, wasn't there, on rehabilitation and degradation of coastal areas and things like that. So yeah, it's pretty much run out of Clare. Like CEO Simon organises all that, and then they get these students and they go out to the whatever different projects there are. So it's sort of all over the whole region in different areas.
Yeah, I was just looking. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I'm just wondering. For me, the wondering was around. So, with all of this going on across that group of 15 councils, what impact is that then having back into this particular council? That was what I was looking for. That connection to this work, which I can see is good work. I just wondered what we were picking up from it, in particular for us.
At the moment, there's limited we get out of this part. It tends to be more south or the coastal ones at the moment. But there is one coming up that talks about in that on page 90. It talks about water and scope of developed water project with SA Water using this monitoring. We had a demonstration by SA Water at one of our CEO's meetings a couple of months ago now that talked about how they can measure the amount of water you should be putting on parks and reserves and all that sort of stuff. So for the top end of this Legatus group, that became very important to us. So University and SA Water will be helping us in that one.
Great, thank you.
And just on the budget side of it, Councillor Pollard asked the question. It's on page 99. You'll see there that in the key outcomes that there'll be no increase in council fees or council contribution. But then when you look across to the 2021 budget, it goes from 167 to 192, which is an increase. But there's some councils pay extra for special projects, like we had one last year, and there's two that pay $5,000, and then there's another $1,000 from each council for this water sensitive thing, whatever it's called, Colin mentioned then. So that puts the contribution up to 192 over the whole councils, but Northern Areas Council this year doesn't get an increase. I think it was 12,100 off the top of my head. I think it's what our contribution is.
Close to that figure.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. All right. So is there any further questions on that Legatus one, please? No, that's for information. No, do we got to move something there?
You got to. There's a motion there.
There's a recommendation on 14.1.2. Move Councillor Robertson, second Councillor Scarman. No further questions? Oh, is that a question or is it a vote?
No, I'm voting.
All in favour? I thought it was your cat's tail wobbling around there.
No, the cat's gone.
Right, next one, Colin.
The next one is titled Genetically Modified Crops. This is a handball from the state government to local governments to see if council wants to declare their region a GM area. So that's basically what it's about. Any questions?
Councillor Brown.
Look, I've had a fair bit of a look at this, and I've read some other stuff that have been sent to me. I would say the vast majority of people in our region would not want us to apply, and if we don't want to apply, then we would be best advised to actually do nothing at all, because if there is an interest, if we make a decision, then that decision can be reviewed if someone has an interest in perhaps frustrating this for a while. So I don't know what other people think, but everybody I've talked to about it just wants it to go through. And if you follow it a fairly, and what we can apply to the minister. The minister is unlikely to give us an exemption and make us GM free unless we can prove there is a significant financial advantage for doing so, because the science is settled by the federal government. The only reason the state government can do what it can do, and it can do it on Kangaroo Island, because they can indicate that they do get a financial advantage where nowhere else in the state could. Well, there may be a few wine regions that might have a similar argument to Kangaroo Island. I don't know, but certainly the wine stuff in northern areas is not significant enough that we could argue that. And so, if we make any decisions, there's a fair chance we'll be reviewing those decisions.
Through Mr. Mayor, could I just make a comment before?
Yes.
This motion is not about yes or no to GM crops. This is about whether you want to go to your community for consultation about the GM crops, right? So because that is a significant decision, and I wrote in my report somewhere that says, yeah, you are elected by the community to make decisions, but this is so significant. Do you want to go to consultation? And I take Councillor Brown's words that what I've got back as well is that probably no one would want to go against what the state have already done, but it's up to council to make that decision to go to consultation, not about whether you have the crop or not.
Well, that's where it's, if we make a decision not to go to consultation, we'll be reviewing that decision. Because as soon as we make a decision, people can apply for council to review that decision. So if we make a decision, it doesn't matter what the decision is, we could be reviewing it if someone wants to frustrate the council.
Councillor Webb, then Councillor Robertson, please.
I actually had only a slight problem in that they specified that there would never be another opportunity to do it. So, you know, it's virtually forcing any council into making a decision. I don't understand much about genetically modified, and any time I have heard anything about it, nobody wants to be involved with it. But that's just from an amateur's point of view. But that was the only part that I actually had a difficulty with, the specification that this was the one and only opportunity to put a point of view across.
Robertson, sorry, Councillor Brown. Councillor Robertson had his hand up.
Yep, sorry. Yep, no, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, my question is to Colin. Do I, as a farmer, have a conflict of interest here?
I'd be more than a few of us.
What I've been told about this, and this is a general statement from the LGA, is that because it's just not applicable to you, it's applicable to a big cross section of people, your decision doesn't become in conflict because it's not favouring you directly. It's a bigger picture that would favour a lot of people. So no, there's no conflict.
Yeah, that would be my view.
Councillor Brown, you go now.
I mean, yes, I can understand that some people haven't had much to do with GM, and like all that you've probably seen in the media is GM's bad. Like this is basically Roundup Ready canola. I mean, it's actually making zero difference nearly. Canola's sprayed with Roundup now. So the economics of it in Victoria, you can be an organic farmer alongside someone growing GM canola, and it does not affect your organic status. So it really, it won't, you know, it's not like everybody's going to suddenly rush over to GM canola, but for some people it will be an important tool in weed management on their property, depending, you know, on how their rotations and that work. Yeah, I just fear that perhaps there could be some frustration and a significant cost to council in reviewing decisions if we, whatever the decision is.
But the thing with this, it's been consulted to death over the years. I don't really know what benefit we're going to get to go to public consultation. Like, I've changed my mind a bit on this, but I think Councillor Brown's made a fairly reasonable comment. Further comments, Councillor Higgins? I think you made a comment. Want to comment?
Yeah, I originally thought, well, we'll just let it sit, and therefore we will agree with whatever what the state government has said. But I'm listening to the conversation around, should we go to consultation so that people know that they have had an opportunity to be involved in this. I think if we were to go to consultation, we'd need to be really clear that we weren't rehashing the benefits or otherwise of GM. What we were doing was consulting on what the state government is saying, so that we don't end up with this long-winded, and I'm not saying it's not useful conversation, but I just worry that we will end up in a big conversation if we're not careful.
Look, the only reason you would go to public consultation is if you want to apply. That's what the advice from the government is. That's what everything is. If you want to apply, if you don't want to apply for an exclusion, there is absolutely no need to go to public consultation. The government's already made the decision for us. And I'm confident that the overwhelming majority of people, as they did vote at the last election, this was the government's policy at the last election, and our council area voted overwhelmingly for that government. So I don't think you could argue that there would be a significant, you know, there will be people that, you know, for various, you know, held various views and on GM, but it will not be a majority. And I don't believe any application could be successful because we can't prove the financial benefit in doing so. So quite honestly, it would be a huge waste of council's time and resource to go and do it, because you can't just do, you know, if you're going to do public consultation properly, well, it'll require a fair bit of time and effort for a net no result, in my view.
Councillor Robertson.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if we don't do anything about this recommendation, I assume it will just happen. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
The minister has the final say.
Yeah.
So, Colin, just some guidance here. If we do nothing, what do you suggest we put in the minutes?
Nothing.
Nothing. Just
no.
Any
decision could be reviewed, and that could take 6 months.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll just mention one thing. The LGA Eyre Peninsula have got a very brief survey up on their website that council can actually send out if they want to. It's only about 9 questions, I think it is. But if we're not going down that path, well, that's a waste of time even looking at it. So any further views on this? I think Councillor Brown has made a pretty valid point. It's been, as I said, it's been consulted to death, and I think probably move on is probably the best thing.
No, there's no recommendation. That's all it is. There's nothing appears in the minute.
Okay. All happy with that? All right.
Can't vote on it.
Oh, well, that's fine. We'll move on. Thank you.
The next one is for information one about the new program the government's just brought out for funding, which is called the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program. We've got about $490,000 been allocated to us from the 1st of July. So it splits it into two parts, roads, then community infrastructure. What I've just put in there is some of the examples they've put. We'll need to start making some determinations on what projects we want to look at. But the problem we've got at the moment, the guidelines haven't come out to us. So I'm just giving you a notice there if you want to think about a few projects, but until we get the guidelines, we can't do too much more with it. Okay, that's just for information up front.
Councillor Pollard.
Yeah, is this likely to help us with our determinations on the bridge at wherever it is, something creek?
Pine Creek.
Pine Creek.
That's not enough money to pay the consultant.
Yes. Well, I mean, is it? Don't worry about Ben's comments. That's the sort of thing they're looking for us to put up, I suppose, is it?
Once we get the guidelines, you could allocate it all to one project if you want to, and that'd only be one part of the project cost.
Yep.
A very small part of the project cost.
Ben, behave yourself.
I think
the project cost is over $3 million. Where are you going to get the rest from?
Depends what you're going to do.
Well, the minimum was $3 million.
I think whether Ben and Leon are going to continue their discussion, but I think as a council, we've got to seriously look at what shovel-ready projects we've got and what we're going to come to in the future, because these things don't just happen quickly overnight. And I think we've got to put our thinking cap on, like with our roads. Like we haven't got anything on the list. You know, whether we've got to revisit the Andrews Road or some other road to get on those programs, because it's probably a 4 or 5 year lead time to get onto those things. So I think we've probably got to do some serious thinking down the track as to what we want to do with those special local road programs and things like that. Councillor Webb first, then Councillor Brown.
With the list that we made for the drought funding, can we use any of those in there that are shovel ready, or is that exclusively under the drought funding?
Any project that didn't get up for the drought fund could be resubmitted under this program, as long as it meets the guidelines. But yeah, those projects that were submitted, yeah, we can reuse them again, yeah, as long as they meet the guidelines.
Councillor Brown.
Now, where were we? What were we talking about before that?
Andrews Road. That's what got you stirred up.
Andrews Road. That's right. Talking to councillors, former councillor Scott. His view was, and Councillor Clark and Councillor Robinson were both there at the time. His view was that the Andrews Road had been put up. There'd been significant SLR road projects done in other areas in the north of the council, and it was before my time on council. It was agreed that it was the turn to have something down this way done, and that was the next road that should be put up. That was the position of the previous council before I was elected, and in fairness, I think that's probably still the road that should go up. Now, we're probably going to make an adjustment to the budget, and if we did the design work, because we have to get the corner design before we can ever put the project up. I mean, you could copy closely the corner down by the airport in Clare. It's a similar bend where a road comes in. So, I mean, some sort of design like that. But the design work has to be done if we're to put that forward as an SLR project. And with the stimulus money that's going to be around in the next couple of years, it might be an ideal thing to be putting forward. There may be more money come into it, or there may be other programs that come up to fund rural roads.
Thanks for that, Councillor Brown. As I said, we'll just put our thinking caps on with those. And yeah, that design work on that corner, that was the stumbling block last time. I was part of that. There was an argument over who was going to pay for it. But whether we can get some funding to do that would be good. Right, sorry, Colin, back to your report.
The next one is the policy review. There was a separate attachment with a number of policies attached. Mainly they were just tidy up things, just looking at review periods and procedure additions. The main one that had some changes was the procurement policy, and that policy was asked to be was withdrawn at the last review and asked to be put up again with some expansion of certain areas. So if I look at that one first, if I can, is the procurement one.
So the councillors want a bit of time to get over to that separate attachment. Yeah.
I'm there now.
Yeah.
Oh, good on you, Brownie.
But I think apart from the procurement policy, councillors pretty happy with the changes there. A lot of them are only minimal. I think, you know, there's biannual and things like that. So I think the main one to focus on is the procurement. Ben, got a comment, please?
Look, I've just got a question on the others. Now, I know you always highlight stuff that's going in.
Yep.
What do you do with stuff that you are deleting?
As in order making policy? Is that the one we talked about? It's with
No, I'm talking about any policy when it's reviewed.
Yeah, and we delete it.
If you delete a section, do you highlight what you're deleting, or do you just delete?
No. We put that in this table to say what was deleted.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I was just checking.
Yeah, no. I thought you were talking about, you want more policies deleted, but no, that's...
Well, I haven't gone back and looked at the previous review where I know some things were deleted, but I can't remember them being highlighted at the time, but I might have just missed it. But anyway.
No, we do it that way, yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of these added stuff is already in our procurement policy. I mean, it's just saying it again.
Right, we're going to procurement now. Is everyone happy with the rest?
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Colin, it's the procurement one that we probably need to spend time on.
All right, okay, so Councillor Brown, what was the query, sir?
Well, I mean, a lot of the stuff highlighted in red is it's already in the policy.
I've tried to expand it to make it more clear. And so our policy...
It didn't need to be a lot more clear. It needed to be complied with. But anyway.
That's what I'm saying. If I make it clearer, and I've gone through a multitude of other councils, just trying to highlight a bit. But yes, I know, I take your point. It's all about compliance. And I'll put there one issue there about around sample audits every 6 months and report that back to council on procurement to make sure we are following policy and to give you that the insurance compliance is being made.
Yeah, and the local employment and local contractors. I mean, that was already in there too. So
we just needed to flush it out a bit because there was a little bit of talk about that we were favouring other contractors that weren't local. So I've tried to make that a bit clearer for our staff that what they have to do.
Yep.
Yeah. Look, I mean, just apart from the fact that it says a lot of things twice, it's fine. I didn't have any problem with it, but I think why it didn't get passed last time is we wanted to make some changes to some of the tables, and I think that's something that should still be done. And look, council, even before my time on council tried to put a stop to this engaging outside contractors on an hourly rate. The previous council had moved a motion before I was elected to try and we used to do a lot of work with Minipave, and a lot of it was done on this hourly rate stuff without a proper quote for a job, and if hourly rate stuff should be done by our own staff, and where we don't have the skills to do a job, well, it should be quoted, and we know what we're spending before we start. So
in this policy at the moment, Councillor Brown, I don't think it says anything about hourly rates.
no, look, the reorder of quotation, the panel arrangement is exactly what it is. It's roadly hourly rates. It's engaging, and it's happening quite a lot where our favourite Neo Infrastructure working on a job, and then the job's expanded and they're paid an hourly rate. They're not even quoting those sections. So
what we're saying, that won't happen again under this policy. Everything has to be quoted now. There's no if there's a variation, we need to have a proper process in place for the variation. I think that's what we talked about at the audit committee, that it has to have a variation quoted.
Councillor Pollard.
This policy
steady, Ben. If that's the case, section 5.4 needs to be changed.
5.4. Hang on, let me have a look.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, these to be deleted if that's the case. Yes.
Yeah, delete, basically delete.
Peter, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Do you use that 5.4 at all?
We've recently discussed getting quotations for standard works, which is a pretty common practice for councils. We haven't gone down that path yet, but that's probably where that applies.
But if you took the hourly rate clause out, what would that do?
Yeah, well, the hourly rates I think probably can come out, because what the pricing we're looking for in the instance I'm talking about is rates per metre or square metre or whatever it might happen to be. So you're working on a basis that you can look at competitively across a range of different suppliers.
Probably what the question should be is, have you been engaging the contractors on an hourly rate?
Where variations have occurred, clearly from the discussions of the audit committee, that would be right. Yes.
Yes, right. That's right.
So we take that clause out at 5.4.
Well, yeah. Look, I think we can delete 5.4. I don't.
5.42. Sorry, not the first.
Proceed straight to direct purchase order for a roadwork and drainage project where the following applies. The order is for less than 75,000.
Do you leave that in? I take the next part out.
Well, then
you want to lower that rate.
You've got to go back to the table and where it provides the direction. Now, 15 to 75,000 for everything but roadworks and drainage.
What we're talking about is reissue order, aren't we?
Yeah, reissue order, request for quotation.
It's between 2 and 75.
Or panel arrangement, which is the hourly rate. Now, if we get rid of the hourly rate, then I suppose all you're left with is the request for quotation.
Yeah, we've still got to get a quotation.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure the reissue order. I'm not dead sure about that. Whether that needs to be there or not, but it's just a request for quotation, which then brings it in line with the 15 to 75,000, the one above, which is request for quotation. So
you take out.
You might just delete the whole lot for roadworks and drainage, and I would say that would probably create a fair amount of, there's probably a fair bit of work done. Now, again, there's been some issues with that by splitting projects up. There's probably been a lot of work done between 15 and 75,000 that shouldn't have been done in complying with the policy. But it would create a fair bit of extra work if every job between 15 and 75,000. You know, there's 3 quotes, and for all the outside work. But I mean, you know, Peter would be a more idea of what extra work that would create.
I just think we've got to be mindful with these policies that they're there, but they've got to be workable for the staff. We don't want to put too many barriers on them for doing their job efficiently and effectively. So, Peter?
Look, look, it's an interesting clause, this one, and it is, other than the hourly rate, from a previous competitive request for quotation. So if we're going to get a dozer operator in, we've been out and we've got prices for, you know, for dozer operation per hour. So this is, if it's a roadworks and drainage project, then you've got hourly rates that you would then apply to it. You know, and you're probably only going to do it on hourly rates. Same with excavator hire or other really plant hire is your main one that this is going to have an impact on. And how many excavator operators and other plant operators are you going to get a fixed price out of, if that's all they're doing? They're generally not too interested in doing those kind of works for a price. They want it's hourly rate, and that's all you got.
Oh, well, yeah. Look, you're hiring a bulldozer and things like that. I mean, this. I suppose what we want to exclude is hourly rates for labour. Like, I mean, an hourly rate for a bulldozer is the only way you'll engage one, and most heavy machinery is the same. And right. If you ask them to provide a quote for a job, they are going to build a fair bit of fat in that, just in case it's harder than they think it's going to be.
That's right.
So, yeah, I quite agree with Peter. The only way you can engage, like we did that process where we put out a tender for raising rubble, which with a significant tender, people came in fairly competitively. But for just small jobs with a bulldozer, or medium-sized jobs with a bulldozer or dozer and crusher, etc., you might get a tonnage rate on some of them once they know the pit, but other than that, it'd be an hourly rate.
Councillor Robertson, you want to comment?
Well, what we want to put in place is something to stop over expenditure on, you know, over and above what the budget says. Now, we were told last meeting that it was 380,000 over on the rotary sheet, and yet the staff first come aware of it in February. So we really want something in place that stops all of that happening again.
If I can comment, Merv, the policy does say that. It tells us the policy was correct. It's just that we didn't comply. All right. So management now must comply. That's one of my directions to management, that we have to comply with policy. And if the policy says that we have to let you know within a certain time, that's what will happen.
But if I can just make another comment, when we restructured the whole staff levels, we were told that each manager was responsible for their budget.
Yes,
now, that obviously hasn't happened.
That is correct. The managers are responsible, and we didn't make it work properly. We will. That's been now corrected.
Councillor Pollard.
I just think that table should be well, that is the strategy. That is what we should follow. The table that is on page whatever.
35.
Page 8 or page 35, whichever. But it has some conflict in it, and that's the one, the 2,075,000 that can be done other ways. If we stick to the strategy without that in it, then it's quite clear, and there's no room for confusion by the staff. Otherwise, there's scope to go off strategy and do other things. I think if we took that out and then took 5.4 out, it would be clear. You know, I take your point, Dennis, that you cannot make it
unworkable.
And perhaps some of those need a bit more fleshing out than what they are here. I'm not sure what it needs, but it's just not. You have a strategy in there. You've got a strategy with conflict. We take that out, and then we work on from there.
Councillor Brown.
Look, I've just had a bit more of a think about it while I'm looking at it. Now, a request for quotation, when the quotations come in from 3 bulldozer operators with the same or equivalent machine and they quote per hour, they may well be engaged on the hourly rate. That's not a problem in itself, but you'll have a quote from 3 bulldozer operators and the most competitive one, as assessed by staff, will be engaged. If the job is above the staff's delegation, it'll come to council for a decision. So that's something that we can look at as far as well as whether the delegations are too high. Now, the other thing that was being removed from the procurement policy was in relation to plant. And previously we had in the procurement policy that all plant over $15,000 came to council. All plant purchases over 15,000 now. 15 might be a bit low, but obviously there's been an issue with vehicles and people not knowing about it and things like that. And I don't think it's we don't buy. I don't think we buy that much plant between say 25 or 30,000 and 100,000 that it would be onerous to bring those to council. So we could bring that back in quite easily and council would have a far better handle on what was going on. But yeah, request for quote, how the quote's formed is not really described by the policy. So the hourly rate stuff for dozers and things like that, it would still be compliant if there's 3 quotes and the cheapest quote gets the job however they charge. So the hourly rate really referred to day labour of outside contractors, which we want to remove from the policy. We don't want that happening. If we're going to do a job with outside labour, they need to quote it.
Dave, Peter, what's your take on that one? Is that going to be a bit restrictive to you or not?
If I could just have some clarity on which part.
Yep. On the day labour bit, that's what you're on about, Councillor Brown, isn't it?
Well, it was the previous council that tried to remove that from the policy and didn't do it successfully. But I don't see a problem. Like, we were talking about hourly rates for dozers, but if you get 3 quotes, and this is the point I'm trying to make, you get 3 quotes and they're still engaged by an hourly rate, I think that's fine. And it would still comply with the policy. You've got 3 quotes, you've made a decision who's given you the best quote and you've engaged them on an hourly rate. Whereas engaging labour on hourly rate where there's a no known cost until the job's finished and how many hours it takes for a particular piece of street work or something else where Minipage or Neo Infrastructure or whatever is engaged. I mean, I think they need to be engaged on, and when we engage outside people to do work like that, it needs to be on a quoted basis. And a lot of it has been, but then you get variations. Cross Street with its variations and all that became terribly complicated. And there's a number of reasons for that. I mean, scope of works changed, it all had to be redone again and all sorts of things. There was a lot of complications in that. But are you clear where we're trying to get to, Peter, with that?
It's about, again, as you mentioned, Councillor Brown, it's about the labour hire more so than machine plant, rates.
Yes.
And I think if the clause could be clarified in that way, it meets your objective.
Councillor Higgins?
I'm wondering, listening to the way the conversation's going, whether what we're saying or what people are saying at the moment, is that anything that we purchase, anything that is procured, in fact, is purchased after there are quotations. So by taking out 5.4, what we're saying is that any and all work needs to go through a quote process first. That's the way I'm hearing it. Is that what people are saying?
No.
No.
Yes and no, but within the constraints of the procurement strategy. So the procurement strategy gives you the so if it's less than 2,000, no, you don't need one. You only need 2 to 15, etc., etc. So it's all in. So if that table is cleaned up, so there's no conflict in it, that's what you work to. Now, and the other thing is that those figures are subject to use Merv's expression, dot point 2, which is the collective costs.
Mm. Yeah, and we've taken that on board in the policy that it has to be the total cost of the whole job, not just individual parts. So there's individual. We've instructed staff now that it's not individual parts. It has to be the collective cost of the whole project. Right?
Now, I just want to take you back to the last council meeting where there was a number of roads quoted as separate roads, right? And I asked a question then of Peter, and I said I didn't think it complied with council policy doing it that way. Now, what is your understanding that if you did it that same way, you would not be complying with council policy as we're talking now?
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking a road is a separate project to me, not like if it's new seals, right? Say take that one. I'd be taking each road as a separate identity, not you don't.
And so you wouldn't be adding the gross value.
Not on those ones because they're separate road projects.
Well,
but
you're not reading the policy properly.
No.
Multiple purchases, the gross value or the estimated gross value. So we're talking multiple purchases, multiple roads, excluding GST, collective costs of purchase from one supplier, right? That's what it says.
So what you want, hang on, if I interpret this correctly then, the way you're saying it is that, hang on, I've lost you for some reason. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, no, you're there.
Yeah. Sorry, there we go. I'm saying that for the resheet program or the reseal program or the new seal program, you would have to get a quote for the whole project, the 1.7 million, the 500,000 and the 280,000. You'd say that's all one project then?
No. Well, in the past,
that's what Councillor Brown's saying.
In the past, it hasn't been an issue because we've done that preparation work ourselves. With the reseals, we do not split it up per road. We put out a reseal, we put it out as a whole job lot, and it's one quote. Now, when somebody's quoting on a heap of roads and they might be the best price, but you're going to pay them 200 and whatever thousand it was, I might have been 180 something thousand, then that adds up to 180,000. There's a process for that, and no one staff member has delegated authority to sign off on more than 100,000.
That's if you combine lots of projects together. I'm saying
that's what the policy says.
Yeah, I've got a different interpretation of the policy, right? So you tell me how you want me to interpret the policy, because I'm not doing it at account level. I'm doing it at job level.
We're going. Just hang on. We're going around and round in circles here. We don't seem to be getting anywhere. I think we need some clarification or some clearer point of direction as to what we're doing.
Yep, that's fine. Tell me.
Yep.
Well, the one underneath. Ongoing purchase over a period of time, the annual gross value or the estimated annual gross value of purchases, excluding GST, i.e. collective costs from one supplier over a period, right? The table applies to that. That's what that's saying. That when you spend I think we've spent nearly $500,000 with No, nearly $600,000 with Neo Infrastructure this year, and not 1 cent of it's come to council. Now that clearly doesn't comply with the policy.
Well, I'm starting to get very confused here.
Well, have you read the policy? Have you ever read the policy, Dennis?
Yes.
Now, can you interpret underneath the table, if you're all on page 35, what is your interpretation of those two particular points? Multiple purchases, ongoing purchases over a period of time. It is abundantly clear, if you apply the table to that, there's a certain process that's not happening.
Right.
And if you then group those things together, then we have a table that gives delegated authority to what staff can spend. That's not being complied with either.
Peter.
Just look for your consideration. Multiple purchases, in my mind, would constitute where we go to Clare Quarry and we purchase materials from them from the gate and we take it away. So the aggregate of those purchases over a year is multiple purchases from the same supplier. Where, again, in my understanding, where we have, again, we're looking for value. So where we've got the reseal program, which we talked about, we group all of that together, because by doing that, we get value for the community by putting that out as one tender with all of those locations together. With the group of roads that we looked at for the new construction, not saying whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, but the concept, we tendered those as individual jobs to give us the opportunity to pick and choose the best prices for those individual projects. So our view is that they are individual projects, because we could give this project to that contractor, we could give that project to that contractor based on cost and based on the ability to look at them as individual projects. So it's about trying to get value for money. And again, whether you believe that was a good process, the principle is about how do we get value for money.
Thanks, Peter.
Look, I've got no problem with that part of it, but when you do when you add them up, you have to comply with the policy. You clearly can't separate and have 20 things from one supplier and not comply with the collective cost. It clearly says.
Where it's been broken up and you have gone to the market multiple times for that aggregate of prices, you have complied with the policy.
Multiple purchases, the gross value of the estimated gross value of the purchases, excluding GST, i.e. collective costs for purchases from one supplier or over the year, right? You need to comply with the table above, and you also need to comply with the delegations on what amount of money. Like anything that adds up to over 100,000 needs to come to council for a decision. You can't add it up and then divide it up again, so you don't have to. There's no council scrutiny. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Neither can we know in July or August, when we award a job to a contractor who's under $100,000, that because we got a grant in February, the following February, that we go to the market again and that contract has been the best, and lo and behold, it's over $100,000 when you add those together. We didn't know the first time. So it's about how can you know?
But you would know the second time. You would know the second time, and you would then bring it to council.
Councillor Pollard.
I just, I'm listening to this, listening to both sides and trying to take an impartial view on it. I just don't see what the problem, Peter, is with actually telling council what's going on. And that's pretty well what we're saying there. The policy is clear but interpretable, but it all comes back to the fact that for some reason, we don't seem to know what's going on. And some might say it's not our business. We're strategists, not keepers of the treasury. However, we do have a responsibility to oversee the works of council, and the more information you can give us on what is going on, I'm sure the happier we would be.
Yes, I appreciate that, Councillor Pollard, and the comments from the meeting last week were taken on board. We are implementing some processes for change with that, and what council decides with respect to the policy, we'll do our utmost to comply with.
Well, I think that's been pretty clear. Like we can picket policies for a long time, but I think sharing the information that councillors have got the information that they require is probably what is needed here. If there's those projects that overrun, there's obviously some that work extremely well that are under budget. We probably should be able to be reported on them as well. So it's these ones that are overrun that are causing the main problems. And I think the staff have heard enough from this meeting and the audit committee meeting that I think things will be better. Councillor Pomeranke, comment please.
Just, I don't know, for a way forward, I don't know, is there some way to work in where once a contractor reaches a certain level of expenditure for the year, expenditures after that are reported to the council? Or I don't know exactly quite what I'm trying to say, but it's like once they reach a level, further expenditure or larger expenditures then come to the council? Or
yeah, that's fair enough.
Things reaching a level of I'll be back in a minute.
Just Councillor Brown.
Well, the point Councillor Pomeranke makes is exactly what I just said previously. You might engage a contractor and he might only quote $90,000, but when he wins the next one and it's $100,000, that'll be add up to 190. That's the time to bring it to council, or it might be 80. So it's clear that when they add up, if you read this and interpret it as it's written, when they add up to over whatever these figures are in the table, and the total adds up, then that's when you bring it to council. It's that simple. Like, I mean, that's when you comply with the policy as far as requests for tenders and everything else. And if they're over the delegated authority, the money's over the delegated authority, then it needs to come to council. What I was going to suggest as a way forward is to delete that whole reissue order, request for quotation and panel arrangement, because basically once you get rid of the panel arrangement, it just same as the one above it, 15,100 to 75, and because this it says 2,000 to 75, so the 2,000 to the 15, you comply up there with that one, and then 15 to 75 you comply with that one, and you just get rid of that one altogether. But then to bring in the line that was deleted about plant coming to council above, I mean, I don't know whether I'd be inclined to go down to 15,000, but I'd certainly probably have it settled at about 30,000. I don't know what others feel, but I mean, it might be 25,000. That might be a figure we agree on. But for plant purchases above 25,000, they all come to council. It was previously in our policy. I just can't remember when it fell out.
I can tell you exactly that. When we did a policy review in the last council, it wasn't this council. So
that's right. Yeah,
it was on the previous council, and that was discussed, and it was determined that management should be give a little bit more freedom with the plant purchases. So it was a council decision. It wasn't a.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
So
it's a previous council, so. Yeah, but a previous council, so we don't need to revoke, to rescind that. We can just make a different decision.
That's correct. But it was done by a council decision.
So has anyone got any problems with that number 6 with the values and that there? Has anyone got a problem with that?
as long as we delete that panel arrangement stuff and that hourly rate stuff up in 5.4.
Well, is it necessary to delete 5.4?
Yeah.
Oh, Colin, Peter, what's your thoughts on that?
Don't worry about them, worry about us.
Beg your pardon? Councillor Pollard? What was that comment?
If 5.4 comes out, that other piece has to come out as well. The note in there. 2,001 to 75,000, that has to come out.
Okay.
Because that refers, they're related.
Okay.
Yes.
So are we all happy that 5.4 gets deleted?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get somewhere here.
Yeah. Ben,
Now,
you're going to put your hand up?
Is there a
Yeah,
consensus?
look, I mean, if we're going to vote on something, we need to move a motion.
No, we're just getting an idea. We're going to take some of that stuff out, Ben.
All right, well, yeah, what was your question then, Dennis?
Oh, Jesus.
Well, we've been going around in circles for half an hour. We don't seem to be getting anywhere as far as I'm concerned. If you want to take out 5.4, it probably should be moved as a motion. And then if you're happy with the table, it remains as it is. Is that fair enough?
No.
Councillor Pollard?
I'll move a motion that 5.4 be removed and the associated entry in the procurement table be removed as well.
Just a minute. Your technology is just, you're breaking up a bit at this stage, Leon.
Oh.
Just start again.
I'm just down the road.
Start again.
That 5.4 and the line in the relevant line in the table that refers to
the fifth one.
And the fifth line in the table be removed.
I'll second that motion.
So you've moved that motion, Councillor Pollard. Thank you. So we're all clear with that. Is there any questions on that motion? Peter?
Look, only just again to clarify that that if that's the case, if total removal of that will mean that if we do engage an excavator, a bulldozer or something like that on an hourly hire basis and it costs more than $2,000, we won't be compliant.
Well, I would think you would be, because you're getting a quote, so you'll comply with the quotes, right? You'll be complying with the quotes. How it is silent. It is silent on hourly rates now, but you can't engage labour on hourly rates. But if three bulldozer operators quote you by an hourly rate, you will still have the most competitive quote, and you'll engage the one, and one might be slightly dearer, but he's got a bigger machine and will be more efficient, or however it works. But that's an assessment that you have to make as the manager. And if it's over 100,000, or if it's over $100,000 for the job, you would bring it to council.
Councillor Pomeranke?
I just kind of against the motion, as in roadworks are a lot of higher costs and it's a different procurement process to the normal way purchasing stationery. So that's why I view they have been separated previously for having different levels.
Agree.
Yeah. All right. Councillor Higgins?
Well, I'm just wondering, that doesn't the table actually reflect that though? Like if we were to take out that fifth line, that between 2001 and $75,000, the roadworks and drainage only, and the associated 5.4, does that not still allow for all of the processes around gaining quotes and making decisions based on quotes? Does it not now strengthen that up?
Yes, it does. It's still, that's exactly how they operate, yes.
Peter, can I have a comment back from you, please?
if you're going to get we're going to get an hourly price, we don't know the final value, and that's why we're getting an hourly price, because the contractor won't put a dollar value on it. All we can do is assume that it could be, is it 50 hours, is it 20 hours, and put some value on the order, which is yet to be confirmed. And yes, we will have the best rate because we've already been, we've been to the market and we've got those, 3 prices for the hourly rate. But the only value I see in 5.4 is in those instances. I don't mind that it comes out for other works. It's simply this bit about the plant, and the challenge of being able to do that. I guess we can between 2015, for example, less than 2000. You've got an hourly rate. You can assume what the value, what the final hours are going to be. Put some kind of an estimate on it, and then in the event that it costs more than that, then you would be reissuing an order or putting a variation on that order.
Okay, thank you.
So, Councillor Scarman, sorry.
So in a nutshell, Peter, if 5.4 comes out, it's still workable.
Yeah, we'll work with it.
But the thing is, with these policies, we can review them or change them. Like if we take these out now and we find that it doesn't work, we can review our policies again.
Yep.
So it's not set in stone for the next 100 years if we change the policy. We can review our policy at any time.
Yep.
Councillor Webb?
Do we still need to send this to the audit committee for a final decision?
No.
I wouldn't have thought so.
No, definitely not. The audit committee makes recommendations, doesn't make decisions.
We've had a motion moved that we remove 5.4 as it's written, and in the table,
line 5.
Number 5, they be removed.
The fifth line in the table, yeah.
Fifth line in the table, they're between 2,000 and 75,000. And as I said, if this motion gets through and it doesn't work, I'd strongly advise that we revisit that again down the track, which we can do. So is there any further questions or comments? All those in favour of the motion, please. Against? That is carried. Thank you.
Now,
Yes,
I was going to move another motion. We haven't discussed it much yet. I brought it up, but the plant purchase one where we bring in a figure perhaps higher than 15, but less than 100. That's all I'm saying.
You're breaking up a bit, Ben. I don't know whether it's you or me, but just say
How's
that again, please.
How's everyone else going?
Yeah, no, we're right.
It's better when you sit forward.
Yep, righto.
Sit up and
the previous one that was in there, 15,000. I don't think it needs to be that low, but I do think there's an interest in knowing what's going on, especially with vehicle purchases and things like that, where councillors will get more questions about vehicle purchases than anything else. And if we put that figure at 30,000, all plant purchases above 30,000 come to council for decision, I think that'll provide the information we need. And I don't think it's that onerous because there's not that much of it. Most of our heavy plant is over 100,000, comes to council anyway, and it's really only vehicle purchases. And then if you buy a collective group of vehicles, well, then off one supplier in a year, then the tables would apply anyway, so they should come to council. So I think that'd clear a lot of that up, is if we had a position. So I'll move that we put in a clause that all plant purchases above 25,000 are referred to council for decision.
I want to just have clarity. Just
Councillor Colin, yes.
is that the
Colin?
changeover value or the value of the plant itself?
Sorry, the total value.
No, is it the changeover value? Say it's a car or a ute or
No,
something.
it's the purchase price. Yeah, like I mean, I wouldn't be excluding the trade-in value. No, if a car's worth $50,000 or $40,000,
yep.
Even if you get $39,000 for the trade-in, it's still a cancel decision.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Purchase price.
Purchase price.
We got a seconder for that motion. Seconder, Councillor Pollard.
Excuse me,
Any
Mayor
further-
Clark.
Sorry, Paula.
When Councillor Brown was speaking, he mentioned the figure of 30,000. When he spoke about his motion, he spoke of 25,000. I just want to clarify which one he wants in his
That is
motion.
correct.
You look, it is correct in the motion. I decided on 25 because I thought I might be going too high for some councillors at 30. So I did put 25 in the motion. I mean, I'm happy to move anywhere on that. You know, but if someone desperately wants 15, well, I'm not fussed, but I think 25 is a reasonable figure.
We have that read back, please.
Thanks, Paula.
I have that all plant purchases above $25,000 needs to go to council for decision.
We just have that purchase price, Ben, with a purchase price of 25,000 or greater.
Yeah, with a purchase price of 25,000 or greater. Yep.
Councillor Pomeranke, got a comment?
I just thought 25 was a bit low. I would 30 I'd be more comfortable with it, or even higher.
No, we'll accept an amendment.
Look, if somebody wants to put 30, I'm happy to incorporate it. I'm really not worried about it that much.
All right, we want to get somewhere. If you're happy to, and the movers and the seconder are happy to go to 30,000, is that where we want?
Happy? I'm happy.
I'll seek leave to incorporate it at 30,000, the amendment from
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Seconder happy with that, obviously. Right, all those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thank you. Now, other policies, anything else? I think that was obviously the main one. No further comments, Councillor Pollard?
Do we actually have to pass that now as amended, or what do we do?
Colin?
Yeah, we had.
So you can do the procurement policy as a separate motion. So the procurement policy with changes made at the council meeting be approved, and then the other motion can still stay the same. The council adopt the changes to the policies excluding the procurement policies that are listed in the attached document presented to the council meeting. You do it in two different motions.
I think we'll do the procurement one first. You're moving that, Councillor Pollard?
I'll move that, yeah.
Seconded, please. Councillor Scarman. All clear on that? This is just the procurement policy. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Now the other policies as printed. Someone like to move them?
Excluding the procurement policy.
Excluding the procurement policy. Moved by Councillor Scarman, seconded by Councillor Pomeranke. Any further questions or comments? All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Right, now we'll go back to the normal agenda. Colin?
That's only the action list or any queries, that's all.
Yep. Any further questions to Colin on his report? No. Members' reports, please. Anyone got anything? I haven't sent mine in yet. Paula, sorry. Anyone want to report? Councillor Higgins?
Just a few things that have been happening that I'm involved in. There's a group of business people who have been working in and around Jamestown in particular, and Mel Kitschke approached me to be part of what they're calling the Southern Flinders Business Stimulus Project, as one of the people who was sort of in the background of that, trying to sort out exactly what that might look like. So far we've had 2 meetings of that group, with another meeting coming up this week. What we're trying to do at the moment is to sort out exactly what that might look like, because there's a couple of ways that that could happen. One is that it could be something like the buy local type stuff, but the Jamestown group had come up with a title that they called Look Local First, which I think probably fits better with what I'm thinking is a useful way to go about this. And through that, there's a gentleman in New South Wales who set up a website and a process called Why Leave Town, but it's reliant on businesses having an EFTPOS machine. And when I talk to a lot of our small businesses in and around this area, many of them don't use EFTPOS. They use a direct debiting type process for their businesses, particularly the really small businesses. So it's coming back to a conversation around how that might work. Part of that has been the setup of a Facebook page, and I'm useless on Facebook, let me tell you. I can look at Facebook, but I can't. I'm having trouble with Facebook. Anyway, beside the point. But there's been about 65 people who've sort of joined that, with many of them still looking at it. But when I talk to people, as I've said, particularly in my local area, they don't use EFTPOS. They use this direct debiting, or they use a little Google Squares or whatever it is that they use as part of their transacting money. So the Why Leave Town might not be exactly what we need. But I guess what I'm letting you know is that the original conversation is that it would cover what they called Southern Flinders. So it sits really nicely alongside the stuff that Kelly was talking about, in that we're doing a big tourism push into Southern Flinders, focusing around bike trails and walking trails and all of those things. Then a lot of our small businesses would benefit really strongly from the extra people that will come into our area with that tourism push. And so this is very much about supporting business rather than the tourism aspect of it. So, yep.
Keep going, Denise, sorry.
So at this stage, it looks like, and this could change at the next meeting, but the basis seems to be that it would cover Northern Areas Council, Mount Remarkable, Oru, Carriton, Peterborough. So it's sort of almost what I would call, apart from the sporting end of it, it's almost like the Northern Areas Football and Netball Association. People who automatically move in and around those areas. If you're looking just at the local people to be buyers, if you're looking at people coming in to be buyers, then it probably won't matter quite as much. But like at the moment, they're talking much more around not confining it to us, but going broader. At this stage, I don't have any indication of what it might cost us in terms of money. It's costing me a bit of time at the moment, but that's what we're here for. I think it's got great potential. I'm just really worried that we'll be excluding our really small businesses if we stay with you have to have EFTPOS way of doing it, because the Why Leave Town gift card process is reliant on EFTPOS, but what it does is restricts people to spending the money in their local area. So there are lots of pros and cons coming in through this. So that's that bigger one that I'm involved in, and Kellyanne Saffin has been at those couple of meetings, so that because she's got that bigger picture headset than many of us have. They've been Zoom meetings, of course. And the other one that's coming up is that there's a group of business owners in Laura who are looking to develop almost like a Laura Business Association. And Sue and I've been asked to be part of that as an initial conversation. And it's tonight, Sue, so it's a big day. But that one's coming up. It didn't happen a fortnight ago because the power went out in Laura and we couldn't get together. So we might have had more to report on that. But those couple of things are those things that I consider that are working into that space of what are we doing to support the people. It's economic development, but I don't see us as being necessarily about supporting a lot of the economic stuff in that way, but about supporting the people who are trying to make a go of being in our communities. So I think it's got legs that we're going to need to keep an eye on. And I'll certainly keep coming back to you about where this Southern Flinders Business Stimulus Project moves to. So there are six or seven of us on there at the moment. Locally, it's Tracy Jewell, Mel Kitsky, Ruth Somerville, Ruth from down. Ruth is part of the Upper North.
Spalding.
Yep. Yep. So who else is on there? Kelly, I've mentioned myself. Hayley Trott, who's part of the Peterborough support crew through RDA. I don't think there was somebody missed, but anyway, it's not a big group at this stage because we're the group that's trying to sort out how exactly it's going to work and sit in the background rather than foreground it. Thank you.
I think this seems to be a perfect one for RDA, and Kellyanne's obviously been involved, and I think that's something that RDA should be able to get their teeth in and help a lot with something like that project.
Yep, and RDA, look, Kelly's at the moment is actually looking at working up the numbers for us around what the costs will be and therefore how it might do that. But I'm really respectful of the fact that this big Southern Flinders, remarkable Southern Flinders and a few of those other ones are really big ticket items. This is a much smaller ticket item in her space. And so we're trying to keep that momentum going on behalf of our local areas.
Well, I don't think that is a small ticket item. I think it's a pretty big one for our region. If you can
for our region, yes, but in terms of her work
together, and I think that's one column that you probably should put in to Kellyanne that be given as much traction as it possibly can.
Yep, I will. Yeah, I didn't even know anything about this. Kellyanne's never mentioned that to me.
No, first I heard of it.
This has happened since the last council meeting. This is all new to me.
Oh no. Only reason I say that, Kellyanne and I have a catch up every 3 weeks. So,
like I say, there's been 2 meetings, and the third one is next. Is this? So, like that would probably be within your 3-week window, Colin. Truly, it has been that quickly.
Okay, righto, fine.
I was at an RDA board meeting last Thursday and I never even got mentioned. So anyway, any other reports, please?
It's telling you. And nothing's definite, and that's probably why she hasn't done a great deal of conversation about it, because there is nothing definite. It's still working out how exactly it might look for us. So
very good. Keep
I'm
going.
being very clear with you.
Any other members' reports? Councillor Webb?
Sue was up first.
All right, whatever. Yep.
I attended, of course, via Zoom, the electric vehicle meeting. It's something that a lot of councils are starting to put into their long-term plans. It's a way of the future. I attended the meeting. There is councils in South Australia going down the track already. I don't expect us to hop on straight away, but I think it's something that we need to be considering in the future. If anyone's interested, I've got more information.
We've actually got 4 chargers in Jamestown. So we started there with the electric cars.
Yep, and I'd like charging stations in all of our towns, but not sure how that's going to happen, but a discussion for later.
Councillor Webb?
Yes, many thanks to the works that have been done in clearing trees at the corners of streets for line of sight. A number of people have actually commented on it. The GCDTA, of which we have a meeting next week, as I mentioned, has specifically asked if, when the monies come through, that the playground shade be prioritised for Gladstone, because the children are definitely going to need it.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, we will move into the confidential report. Someone like to move to go into camera, please? Councillor Robertson, Councillor Pomeranke, all those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thank you. Colin,
Hang on, we just need to stop the recording.
Thank you.
Have you got that stopped, Colin?
Back?
I can get him
So
back.
We can,
Yep.
we can get him.
Yep.
I can organise that, Colin.
All right, okay, you do it.
Is there any
Separate
any
office.
questions that don't involve Peter? Any comments in general business? Right, we'll just wait for Peter to come back on. He must have done a runner, I think.
He probably left the meeting, so he's got to join it, do
He
it,
does,
all
yeah.
log in again.
Or even if he comes into Colin's office, if he doesn't want to log back in again, in the background. Right, you're muted, Colin.
He won't be a moment. Okay.
Yep.
Right. Just give us a couple of seconds.
Well, thanks for that discussion on the policy. It's a pretty big thing, so hopefully we've got that sorted out. It's never easy, but as I said, we have got the option of changing or reviewing those policies at any time. So just please keep that in mind. Any other comments from anyone while we're waiting for Peter to come back in?
Now, what was the story with the road base that came out of the sides of the roads here? Did you tell me what the eventual story was with that?
Peter hasn't said anything to me. I don't know whether they've had a chance to get that information yet or not. The question I asked was, like, when the staff are doing the roads, like they got a semi-load, and if they put it over a certain distance and all that sort of stuff to get there, the amount of rubble that's put on the road, I just wanted to check to say that, right, is the road getting 100 mil? Is it getting 120 mil? What's the final results? Is it the right meterage and that for the width for those particular category of road? But I asked Peter for some of that information, and yeah, I presume he's still working on that. So I think it'd be interesting just to see that the people, the staff out there on the road are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing when it comes to resheeting. Is it correct? So that's what the questions I was asking.
And that wasn't the one I was asking. I was
Sorry?
asking about the road base that came out of the sides of the road here with empty.
Sorry.
Because there's a bloody mountain of it out there.
Yep. That was the material that was, I'll get Peter to explain that. Leon, that'll be the best way.
He's on his way now. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's good. For other councillors, what was taken off the road between the bridge here in front of the council chambers out to Eldina Road on the Cowtowie Road, that material was it's been stockpiled out the Cowtowie Road, and I'll let Peter explain why that wasn't used by council. I thought it might have been an opportunity, but Peter will tell us. Peter, you're back.
I'm back.
Sorry about that. Councillor Pollard's got a question. Well, you want me to answer it, Leon, or? It was to do with the material, Peter, that was recovered off the Cowtowie Road from the bridge to Eldina Road. Why council didn't get an opportunity to use that? You explained it to me, so if you can just explain it to the other elected members, please.
Yeah, certainly. We were asked if we were interested in the material. I said that we were interested in the material. We looked at where we could store that material, and I offered them a location, which was Bottrell's Pit, and they were not interested in taking the material there. And they indicated they had somebody else who was interested in having that material.
And it's all sitting up at on Slattery's Hill.
As it turns out, yes.
Yeah. So that, I think we might have got shafted there, but that doesn't matter. Gypsy's pretty good at that. the next question for you, Peter, is I see we've purchased a dolly, second-hand dolly,
Yes.
about 20 grand. Now, we've been hiring that for 2.5 grand a month for the last 4 months. 4, is it 4? 3 or 4?
2.5 a month. Is it 2.5 a month?
2.5 is what we paid this month for it. Now, did we get a substantial discount on that because it's off the same person? I mean, after we've hired it and bloody near paid for it, now we...
It was not the same unit, Councillor Pye.
Not the same unit, no, but we have paid them now for that, well, for the hire, and you take the other thing into consideration. If we had it for 4 months, that's 30,000 we paid for it. Did we negotiate a good price on that?
What we got was value out of the dolly while we had it, and what we have with the new dolly is value with that new dolly. Now, we went to the market to get prices for the dolly that we purchased, and we looked around the market to get the pricing for the hire of a dolly. So we've done all that was reasonably reasonable to get good value for council in both the hire and the purchase of dollies.
Right. Just a comment, the stump grinding at Kent Terrace took place a few weeks ago, and there's just mountains and mountains of ground stump there. Whether that's going to be put back onto the footpath or it's going to go somewhere, it's pretty ugly. Nobody can walk along it at the moment. The other question I have is probably for this forum. In the audit committee meeting, we were told that in particular Canaan Street wasn't done by our own people because the staff did not have confidence in working to levels.
So this is about survey levels and survey pegs. So generally you've got to have fairly significant supervision for your people to be working with those. We offered our staff the opportunity to do the new construction works, and the response was that whilst they were confident to do the works in areas like Yakka, where we didn't have survey, where we just by eye, let's build a road here that's gonna suit the profiles. The works on Canaan design were set out with a surveyor and surveyor's pegs to work to.
Councillor Brown.
Would I be right in saying that's been done in the past, that they've worked to surveyor's pegs?
Well,
You'd be right in saying that there was a level of supervision probably provided with working to surveyor's pegs in the past. So you really need that person who's on site to be able to guide and direct the works with that level of site supervision on the job.
I'm not exactly following that, but anyway, perhaps I'll come and talk to you about it. And I think that's about it.
Councillor Brown.
Well, look, I mean, that's interesting what Leon's brought up, because councillors that have been there a while would know that, and I think he's still the current grader operator, Graham Cowan. I mean, he's graded miles of SLR projects to survey pegs. And he might have, I mean, David Cowan certainly had a he used to do some work on levels as well. So are we saying that the supervisor doesn't have the skills to supervise the grader operator that's clearly graded to levels for years? Is that where the problem lies?
No, we're not saying that. We're saying that the grader operators were given the opportunity, asked whether they wanted to do those works or not, and they said no, happy to do works in those other areas, in country roads, not confident to do those in those township areas there.
I spoke to Peter about this last week, and he gave me that same answer. So I was a little bit surprised, but I don't know where they draw the line there. If they say they have to do it or what, I don't know what the protocol is there. But anyway, I just thought they might have been able to do that job. But Peter's given a fair answer as far as I'm concerned. Councillor Pollard.
Just one more. Peter, all of these, no, not all of them. Malcolm Street doesn't apply here, but the other roads that were done in the last 6 months around town seem to be extremely high. Are we creating a water problem by building those roads up so high?
So when we've had them surveyed, we've considered the surrounding, the water, etc., drainage, and in probably most of those instances, we've got them up high to work with drainage, under the roads, to pull it under. There are, I guess, pros and cons, but confident that we're not creating. Certainly, you say you're excluding Malcolm Street, you say?
Yeah, that's pretty flat. But certainly the next one down, which is
Arthur Street.
Arthur Street looks as though it's a starting ramp for a flyover to South.
It starts high and it falls water away from those paddocks and things, so we can't fall water into those paddocks. So yes, it starts high, but by the time you get to that intersection with Florence, it's pretty reasonable there, and that's effectively a bit of a low point where the water comes across on that concrete spoon drain across.
Yep, okay. And when you put the project up to say you're doing Clyde Street, I thought that's all you were going to do, which is about probably 100 metres, 50 metres. That road around the corner that goes down past the
community gardens is another road altogether. And you certainly confused me. I thought you were going to do a little bit.
Probably refer you back to the report that came to council for that particular road.
And I know there were things there, and I just shook my head and I thought, well, and especially when you want to do another 90 metres or something, I just didn't understand where you were going. Anyway, I must have had an off day that day, Peter.
All right. Any further general business?
Kathy.
Councillor Webb.
Yes. Do we actually have a survey engineer on staff, or is there a possibility of sharing resources through with other councils?
So the answer to that is no, we don't have one on staff, and we do as other local councils do, and engage consultant surveyors for our works.
Peter, with cost effectiveness of that, we'd have to pay, well, we obviously haven't got anyone with the skills, but to employ someone with those skills would be a fairly expensive exercise. Like, it's not a lot of survey grading to levels done apart from our reseals and stuff, but a lot of it's just general road resheeting. So it'd be a fairly expensive exercise just to employ a surveyor, unless you've got someone that's multi-skilled.
That's right. Yeah, you're surveying. You're picking up for new works with a surveyor, and you're pegging out for those new works you're going to build. Most of it, we don't do a lot of new works. For the amount of new works that we do, you wouldn't even consider looking for someone with specific surveying skills. When you look for to replace a position, you'll get applicants, and you assess those applicants on the basis of who gives you best value across a range of things. So, we by no means do we have all the skills for everything within council, and so again, when we advertise for positions, when people apply for those, you look at the range of skills. You ask for particular things, but you look at the range of skills that your applicants bring to the table. Some of them bring more, some of them bring less, and you never know. it's life's a box of chocolates when it comes to advertising for positions. You know, you get people with a range of different skills and abilities. Sometimes you'll get more than you expect. Other times you get less than you hope for. You know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that at some stage we might have somebody with surveying skills, but it wouldn't be the first thing we ask for.
Councillor Webb.
Is there would it be cost effective in having the grader drivers trained so that they would have the confidence to do that work?
So we've got our most experienced grader operators are of an age where they're not looking for more, they're looking for less. So to look at training those with the greatest aptitude, again, the age train's probably passed them by. There may be one within our crew who might provide some opportunity there. Probably more practically for where we are at the moment is looking at what electronic assistance we can get with that. So you set up your grader with your auto stations and things like that, and it tells you whether you're up or whether you're down or where you need to go. So we'd look at that sort of technology and upskilling our staff to work with that gear, if that's the way we're going to look at. But again, you really need to be doing that kind of work all the time for it to pay for itself.
Okay, thanks. That leads me to the next question: is are we having much of a turnover in staff at the moment?
Not yet. There's a little bit. We've probably in the last 3 years, we've probably replaced 10% of our staff. Another 3 or 4 years, and you'll probably find that's up to about 40% of the staff. We've got quite a few, and that depends on super and how the super goes. I know one of our staff was looking at retirement after Christmas and is thinking that he may prolong his time with council because the super's taken a bit of a dive.
I'm finished.
Right, any further general business? Councillor Robertson.
Yeah, just one, Mr Mayor. Regarding the staff culture survey we received back in April, it was mentioned there that there was bullying being done by a staff member. Has that been addressed and has that been stopped now? Probably a question to Colin.
Microphone, Colin. Start again, please.
Through, Mr Mayor. That survey was anonymous, so I don't know who that staff member was or was accused of bullying. What I've done is given some staff workshops on what we need to expect of our staff, and not address bullying as such, but just looked at standards of staff and what we need to be and how we treat people and how respectful we need to be of people. So that's what's happened.
Oh, getting a bit of background noise there somewhere. All right, any further questions? General business. I think we're nearly due to wrap up, I think. Nothing else, right. Section 41 committees, no reports. Council delegates reports, I think we'll put them in. I haven't yet called, or I'll send that one in as soon as we finish. Anything else? If not, I will declare the meeting closed. Next meeting will be on the 21st of July. Hopefully it will be face to face. And in closing the meeting, I'll ask the CEO panel members just to remain online for a short period, please. And thank you to everyone else for your attendance. Thank you. You're muted, Colin.
Just one thing, the special council meeting next week.
Special meeting next week, yep, on the 24th at 9 a.m.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Colin, you just need to stop the recording.